Okay, so can you tell us about Amal, its mission, why and how it got started?
So Amal is a nonprofit center in Marrakesh, Morocco, and we're here today in Amal. And we've been operating for over 12 years in the space of women's empowerment, particularly through a training program in the culinary arts that we've developed slowly and painstakingly over 10 years. Um, and we work with women who have had little access to any kind of opportunities, be it education or work or prosperity in any way. And we take the cooking skills that so many Moroccan women have, and we build on those to create a professional skill set that they could then work in any restaurant, any cooking establishment, really. So the goal is both a sort of outward or visible transformation through the skill set, but also like an inward kind of personal journey that I think any woman goes through of coming out of a type of erasure and into fullness and into existence. And we try to be there for that. We try to create the conditions for that to happen.
Okay, fabulous. And so because the course I teach is on multi-stakeholder partnerships, we're of course interested in that. So has Amal partnered with any other organizations in the past, be it nonprofit, government, businesses?
Yeah, we've had a couple of really successful partnerships. I mean, one is a partnership with the local bus company. And it sounds kind of simple, but it's been profoundly useful for our students. So basically, our bus company gives our students free bus cards, and it's they've been a wonderful, wonderful example of corporate social responsibility done right and done very long term. I mean, we've been partners with them for years, and we always have new cohorts of students who are always like renewing, getting new bus cards. Our students are able to keep their bus cards even after they get a job for a little bit to kind of help that transition, because most of our students take 4 bus rides a day, so it's 2 to come here and 2 to get home. And the cost would add up, and the cost would actually be prohibitive, and they wouldn't be able to attend the training. So it's a small but super helpful way that we're helped by the bus company. We've also been partners with a Swiss foundation that I mean, in addition to being sort of one of the main financial donors of Amal, they donated 2 large grants that helped us really get each of our centers, from this like idea stage to like a working reality. So that's been, but not only a financial partnership, but also like just technical support and technical expertise that's been really valuable, and a type of, I guess, moral support or encouragement that I think is really valuable in this kind of work. We're, after all, trying to build something that doesn't have a blueprint. So the space of creativity is really important, and having partners that can help in the co-creation process is really important, because sometimes people can see things that you don't see yourself as an organization.
Very important. Thank you. That's really interesting. Now, as I understand it, right, and as most people hopefully remember, we have very short attention spans, is that of course in Morocco there was a huge earthquake at the beginning of September. being from Los Angeles, I always get very emotional around earthquakes. And that kind of posed a challenge for your organization. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, well, I guess it's been one of the uh besides COVID, it's been one of the sort of biggest things that our country or community has had to deal with in the last few years. And it was such a shock. I mean, we've never lived through anything like that. We've never lived through a 6.8 magnitude earthquake. And so we were sort of both, every one of us on a personal level, kind of reeling from that and reeling from the trauma of going through that. And then seeing the extent of the damage. So the damage in Marrakesh, there was damage, but not on a massive scale. There's individual houses that were affected, but then in the mountains outside of Marrakesh, the devastation has been just, it's almost unfathomable. We're talking about like about 50,000 homes destroyed. So yeah, 300,000 people more or less living now, have been living in tents since then, or in makeshift housing of some sort. So we, as a organization that's part of civil society, we felt, obviously a huge responsibility, and the outpouring of help and support in Morocco is really beautiful to watch in the first couple of weeks. What we did from day one is we got together and we started to cook for people who had been affected by the earthquake. And it turned out at the very same time that we had already kind of launched this process of making meals, and our thought was we would cook all day and then we would drive our Amal cars up the mountain and find villages and get, people didn't even have water, like the water supplies were affected and stuff. And that morning, as we had started this process, we were contacted by World Central Kitchen, which is a very large international NGO that they cook in areas of disaster and they feed people when there's disaster. And so I'd always been a big fan of their organization and the work they do, and then I got to work with them and I realized that the only opportunity, the only context within which I would work with them would be one of disaster for my country. And so it was very bittersweet that I got to work with this wonderful organization, but in one of the sort of saddest and darkest moments for our country. And so they showed up and they said, oh, the way they operate is at the very beginning of the disaster, they do sandwiches because that's the easiest thing to distribute. They transition to so they do sandwiches with local partners like ourselves. So they identify right away the restaurants, whatever, that are able to produce large quantities. They move within the first week, they move to hot meals, also produced by partners. And in the meantime, they're setting up field kitchens close to this disaster site. So they have a multi-phased approach. And so they wanted sandwiches from us. And I remember that day they were like, well, how many sandwiches are you going to make? And we're like, oh, we were going to do a couple hundred. And they were like, we want the most you can make. Like, can you do 1,000? And we were like, okay, plan is shifting, pivoting right away. We're doing 1,000 sandwiches, not 200, and they're like, and by the way, tomorrow we want as many as you can make. So we ramped up production in both of the centers to 3,000 sandwiches across both centers. So we just launched this massive like sandwich production. And it was it was cool. We had never worked at that capacity ourselves, you know. And then World Central Kitchen had all the logistics in place. So they had, you know, these jeeps that can go up in the mountains and deliver the food. They had a helicopter. So it really fit well that we could just focus on the thing that we knew how to do and not like also be out there trying to drive up into the mountains and figure out where and how to distribute. And so those were like, that's what we did in the first few weeks is we made food with World Central Kitchen. We did about 19,000 sandwiches in the beginning with them and then with a few other partners. And since then, earthquake relief has become a major part of what we do. It's then evolved beyond food, and we've been very active in building shelters, in providing an ongoing supply of fresh produce to the villages. Yeah, so that's what we've been doing.
Okay, that's a lot of work. You've had a lot on your plate. Wow. And how's it, so with building shelters, that's really sort of outside. I mean, I hear, and I think it's really interesting what you say, you know, what you do is you cook. I got to be there and see that. Building shelters and things like that, has that been an easy thing for your organization to address? Or hard?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, one is, you know, there's such a massive need. It's hard to know where to start. We decided to focus early on one particular group of villages. There's 27 villages that kind of fit together in the same geographical area. So there's about, I think 500 families across these villages. And there's also been the ideas of what type of shelter have evolved, like with other NGOs working there on the ground, like, you know, people have prototyped different models. There's the idea of like prefab units. Lately, the one that we've discovered that works really well is a wooden cabin. It's been really cool. They're small, they're not expensive, and we figure that also over time, once the villagers can rebuild their own homes, there's something they can do with that wood. You know, they can still use it because we're thinking also about legacy or the impact of what you leave behind in the mountains. And so we found a supplier, a company that makes the houses. So they've been the people actually doing that. And then what we do is we work with the villagers to assess like, okay, this village has 36 families, you know, 20 of them are small-ish, so they need this size house, and then 10 are larger, so they need this size. So we do a lot of that. And then we work with a lot of donors, which can be either foundations or individuals. I mean, this has been a bigger project than anything we've ever done in Amal since the beginning of Amal. The scale of it, just the sheer number of donors. We've had over 3,000 donors to the Earthquake Relief Fund. Individual donors and organizations. Yeah, it's massive. Yeah.
A lot of work. Can you tell me then, I mean, we're always interested, you know, I think we often are great about telling all of these wonderful stories about partnerships. And so we're interested, of course, you know, what's great about it, but what's challenging about partnering with other organizations?
Some partnerships have been disappointing. Some partnerships have just fallen through. Sometimes other we've come across other organizations that have had a less than ethical approach to the distribution of funds or to how they're operating. And yeah, I think that no partnership is better than that kind of partnership. But we've had, I'll tell you an example of a good partnership. There's an initiative called Artists for Morocco that started right after the earthquake. And what it was different Moroccan artists got together and decided to sell like prints of their work to donate to earthquake relief. And they actually raised a lot of money. They raised over 2 million dirhams, which is about $200,000. And they decided to work with us and another NGO, another Moroccan NGO that's doing earthquake relief. And so we're getting about half of that, and that's going to fund close to 120 houses. So yeah, that's been a really good, like, everyone kind of doing the thing that they're good at. So like, these are artists who have art, who can sell art. And then, here we are, we're not even building the houses, like we're facilitating so that the company that is good at building the houses can do it. So I feel like partnerships, there's like just a lot of like links in a chain that is just a lot more effective than one person trying to do everything, trying to raise the funds and build the houses and yeah.
I love that. I love the links in a chain. That's a great metaphor. Any advice that you would give to, I've got students who are studying international relations, who are studying, some of them are the masters in development and masters in international relations. Any advice for them? A lot of them do want to get into this kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it's a noble profession to do, and to realize the responsibility that comes with it. I would say know the people that you're going to work with and love them. After all, I feel like love is the best motivation for doing all of this work. And one sort of mindset that I've developed, or mindset shift that I've experienced, is going from seeing the people that we work with as victims waiting to be saved, and shifting that to seeing them as experts at living in resilience. And if you were before an expert, you have a certain humility and you have the openness to learning from that expert, or the desire to learn from that expert. And these people they're experts at living their own lives, obviously, and they're experts at living in scarcity and in adversity. And there's just something deep that we can learn from that. And not to say that what we bring from an academic setting or a development background, isn't useful. No, it's super useful when sort of when looking at it as a two-way street, that it's not just, we are here, we know how your lives should be, and we're going to help you achieve those lives. You know what I mean? Like let it flow both ways. Be open to learning, come with a lot of humility, and like I said, love, like let the foundation be love.
I love that. Thank you so much, Nora.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for asking these questions. And yeah, I hope that something that I said is useful.